Welcome, tribe. Morning. It is midweek Wednesday, and we're here for morning motivation sessions with Unity V Live. In case we haven't met, my name is Yani Bormeister. To my right is my ever, I was going to say faithful, but that wouldn't make sense. What's the word when you're really reliable, dependable,
Awesome,
loyal? Whatever. Anyway, you get my point. Rad Bormeister.
great intro.
And today we've got a really hot topic. We had a lot of questions come through. Thank you everybody for shooting them through. We are going to be talking about training around exercise. It's good we got a sound check there. Now, if it's your first time joining us, we are the gym that teaches people how to move and nourish instead of just diet and exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image. We'll be talking lots and lots about training around exercise right after this. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
All right, everyone. So I'm actually just looking at my computer now because I just want to find out who it was that sent us this awesome question. So the question is, we've got this awesome mobility routines that people can download online and get access to and do in their own home. And we've got thousands of people around the world that are loving them, getting great feedback from them. But one of the most common questions that we get asked before people get these programs is, I've got this or that injury, can I do it? And the most recent one is from Manny Daku. So Manny asked, hey guys, I'm interested in your products for flexibility, but my only problem is I have some knee pain problems, so it makes it even harder. Do you take these types of chronic pain or joint pains into account, and can this help me? So absolutely we do. The short answer is absolutely we take chronic pain and joint problems into consideration when we do our programs. There's a long answer to this, and I'll just say my little bit and Yanni can chime in when he wants, because this isn't a short answer. The first thing I need to say is that everyone's different, and if you've got chronic pain, you need to see a physio or a chiropractor or an osteopath or someone, a specialist.
You need to align yourself with a team of good specialists, and that can take a little bit of trial and error. You're not necessarily going to find the best person first go, and they vary. The skill sets and the experience varies immeasurably.
Yeah.
So it's super important that you just keep trying to find someone that you end up getting a really good result with.
Yeah. If you're going to, I love our good friend Tom Cartwright from Cartwright Physical Therapy, who's just around the corner from Unity Gym for anyone that's in the North Sydney area that needs treatment. Those guys are absolutely amazing, and we've been all around to align ourselves with people that are of the caliber that we expect from a physical therapist. But Tom said, look, if you go to a practitioner and you do 3 sessions and you don't see a remarkable improvement in your condition, you need to look at somebody else, because they're probably not the right person for
That's
you.
Right.
But you do need to expect that you want to at least try 3 sessions. It's not necessarily going to get better on the first session. So that aside, so you need diagnosis. Like if you're asking me a question on Facebook, I'll give you the best answer that I can. But honestly, without sitting down and chatting to you, and even for me being a personal trainer, I'm a movement specialist. I'm not an injury rehabilitation. I shouldn't say that. We are very good at injury rehabilitation. I'm not an injury diagnosis specialist. So when someone comes to me and they need to diagnose what's going on in my knee, if I can't figure it out, I'm not going to tell you some crap answer and say, oh, it's this and this, just do that. I'm going to say, look, go and see a physio, get them to diagnose it, then tell me what the problem is and I can help you with it.
Absolutely.
So
there's a very big difference. There's a very big difference between diagnosis and prevention and rehabilitation. And physiotherapists, that's what they train for. That's the big thing that they really train for, is being able to diagnose. I mean, the majority of physiotherapists don't specialize in sports physiotherapy. They specialize in clinical physiotherapy, where they rehab car accidents and people
burns,
like all sorts of stuff. Physio is not sport. Sport is a branch of physiotherapy that they can specialize in. So just keep that, be very aware of that. So first of all, you need to find a physical therapist who has experience in sport. and preferably someone who has experience in the field that you're practicing. So, if you're into CrossFit, then find a physiotherapist who also does CrossFit, because they are out there, and they will have a really good understanding of the type of movement that you're doing. If you're into calisthenics, or like, for instance, our guys, they are in the gym like every day, and they used to be professional tennis players. So it's that they've got a very good understanding of the shoulder mechanism and mechanics, which is what we put a lot of stress on. So it works really well. The marriage is really great for us, but you'll need to find that for yourselves. But just remember that diagnosis is something that you need a specialist to do. Like Rad and I can't really even do that. We can do it through our experiences. Like we've seen the same thing. We've seen patterns and similarities, and we can sort of say, I think it's this. But we're not specialists, and if you've got a degree where we can diagnose.
If you've got a personal trainer, because we are, so Manny's just said thank you. I'll have to catch it another time. Hopefully you do get to see this, Manny. We're really good at telling people that we don't know what the answer to that is, because we've been around long enough that we're confident enough in what we do that we can say this is not what we do. If you're speaking to a personal trainer that looks you dead in the eyes and says, yep, this is what it is, we've just got to do this, this, and this, I'd take a step back and have a little look, because I've seen that before, and personal trainers are not injury diagnosis specialists. So, look,
and in most cases, they're not rehabilitation specialists.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so that's the first thing I'll say. You do need to find out what the injury is. The next thing that we need to talk about is, in terms of stretching, if you've got muscle tears, so if your muscles have been torn, then stretching is definitely not the answer. You do not stretch torn muscles, because, if these are your muscle fibers, they all interlace over each other. A tear is when the muscle fibers have pulled apart, and what they need to do is to regrow. Guess what stretching does? Stretching pulls the muscle fibers apart to create elasticity. So what you do need is a strengthening program, which is a whole nother topic. That's something that we do here as well. We are releasing our first 18-week stretching program for the Foundation Movement System. Strength program. We'll be releasing that within the next few weeks, and that is absolutely amazing for injury rehabilitation. That's what it's designed for. It's designed to work people from the ground up. But for stretching, you don't want to stretch torn muscles. For chronic injuries, usually a chronic injury is usually, in my opinion, so don't take this to the bank, this is my opinion. In my opinion, most chronic injuries are usually a combination of a lack of strength or a lack of mobility in a joint, a combination of the two somehow. What do you think about that, Yanni?
I agree, but I'd add a third component to that, or modality to that, which is just overuse, doing the same thing far too much and not understanding the concept of program periodization.
Yep.
Because you have to have peaks and troughs of intensity and volume. And if you don't, you catch an adaptation, and then it turns into an injury.
Yeah.
And the whole I guess concept of program periodization is to maximize the adaptation, minimize the risk of injury. And especially when you're dealing in strength and calisthenics style training, and you're not doing mesocycles of endurance, cardio, anaerobic strength. Like we don't deal in endurance athletes. We're training for strength and calisthenics and gymnastics skills. So most of the time our training is strength or muscular hypertrophy oriented. Our mesocycles look like prep, hypertrophy, strength, recovery. But if you're not periodizing all of that, then that will create a third modality to injury.
Absolutely. So if we try and bring this in for a landing now, the question again, going back to
Richie, lower the exposure on the main camera. We're a bit white. Okay. We look like ghosts.
So if we're looking at we're still working out how to use all this amazing equipment. If you see, if you have a look at our Instagram stories, you can see Kalisha does videos of this. If you could see what's going on over there, the amount of equipment, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
For a gym, for a couple of personal trainers.
Yeah.
So,
right.
The going back to the question, is mobility, is flexibility right for me if I've got an injury? I would argue that every single person on this planet
will benefit.
Needs
Yeah.
flexibility and strength.
Yep.
I've never met anyone that doesn't need flexibility or strength. And the first thing that pops into my mind that I can see the keyboard warriors wanting to jump in and say, oh, but I've got hypermobile joints. I've been told that I shouldn't stretch. Wrong. Well, maybe right in a way. You probably shouldn't stretch, but you do need to mobilize. You still need to take your joints through full range of motion, but it's done differently because stretching and loaded mobility are two different things, and they're two topics that are covered in the 18-minute stretching routine package that people get. We have a loaded mobility routine, which is where the muscles are put under load and taken to their full range of motion, and then we have a stretching routine, which is where the muscles are relaxed and taken through their full range of motion. Very, very different. Yeah. But everybody needs mobility, flexibility, and strength.
What a big common issue that I see, especially online when people are involved in discussion threads, is that they get stifled by the language that's used. But the thing is, you have to understand, even if you're hypermobile, you need to develop end range strength. And that's where mobility training comes in. Sure, and if we just quickly break it down, stretching is a mark or a measure of flexibility. Or flexibility is used as to describe the measurement of your stretching and mobility and ability work. Mobility is about increasing the end range strength. And the two are very different. And you know, as Rad said, it's absolutely right. Everybody on the planet will benefit from development or training in their mobility and their end range strength. It's just ridiculous to think otherwise. Now, one thing I want to talk about, because we have had a lot of questions come in regards to the program. People watch the entry-level program that we've developed is called an 18-minute stretching routine, and it's designed as a standalone workout that you can do, a routine every day as a great starting point. Now, we get a lot of questions from people. Kalisha brought a few up to me last night via email saying that it's too hard. Like, you just as a baseline, it looks like that you need a really high level of mobility. Now, you have to excuse our ignorance here, because watching us do it, we've cultivated a very high level of flexibility and mobility, and it would just be unrealistic for Rad, when he's demonstrating those movements, to demonstrate them in a really immobile state. He can't do that anymore. But that doesn't mean that you can't start on the program. Yes, you're not going to look exactly like Rad looks when he's modeling the movements, because he is already very mobile. But you can still start, and anything is better than nothing, guys. So just remember that. Don't be stifled by the path in front of you. Just focus on step one. Don't worry about the summit yet. You know, you're not there yet. Most likely, the majority of you aren't even at baseline, what we would call baseline movement, flexibility, mobility, which is to be able to perform a deep squat at rest. So you're not straining or tensing or forcing it, you're resting in a deep squat position. That's our baseline, guys. Like, we don't even really encourage people to really hammer advanced mobility, like the loaded mobility and stuff, until they are at baseline. And so when our senior guys are doing mobility drills, they'll be doing loaded mobility. When our beginners are doing mobility drills, they're just practicing the squat, right? Until they hit that baseline. It's this. I had this conversation the other day with nutrition, where we did an AMA, and I said, don't even bother about nutrition supplementation until you're at baseline. And baseline to us is a really, really good variety of healthy foods, not processed. 50 healthy unprocessed foods a week. And most people need to work on that first before they worry about nutrition supplementation. It's the same with the mobility. So for all of you who have downloaded that 18-minute routine and look at Rad doing it and think, my God, I'm not even at this level yet. Of course you're not. He's been working on his mobility for years, decades, you know, and it's super important to understand that. Just get started, do your body's interpretation of the movements. You're likely going to feel them and look differently to what Rad does, but that's okay, because it's all just about getting started.
I remember being there. I remember really clearly looking at my teachers when I was younger and just constantly questioning. I just had so many questions. My background is in Kung Fu, so I did martial arts a lot during my 20s. I was pretty active with it for about 13 years. But I never developed a great level of ability, and definitely not a great level of flexibility, when I was 36 and we created the 18-minute routine to create something that was... The whole reason we created the 18-minute routine is because we knew so many stretches and so much stuff, but if you tried to do it, you just got overwhelmed with thinking, I can't be bothered stretching for an hour. So we created this routine where we put everything together, the most valuable stuff out of everything that we knew, into a routine that could be done daily in a short amount of time. And it wasn't until we created that routine that my flexibility really started to develop. So in all honesty, I've developed, I've been stretching for 20 years and I developed 80% of my flexibility in the last 4 years. And that is the honest to God truth.
Yeah.
When I started doing this routine, I remember 4 years ago, I could barely touch my toes. Like I could, but it was a serious pain just to get my fingers onto my toes. And when I was younger, I used to question everything. I was always asking my teacher, why do you do it like that? How do you do this? How do you do it? And I had more questions than he could answer. And he had this thing for me. He used to say, you can ask me 3 questions. And if you ask me 3, you can't ask me a question for a month. And I used to push it. I used to ask him 3 and he'd answer me. And then I'd go for the 4th one and he'd say, don't ask me anything for a month. He was a very traditional Kung Fu teacher and he wouldn't speak to me for a month. And I didn't get it. I didn't get what he was trying to teach me for a decade because I was young. But I understand it now. In my wisdom as I grew older, it's just about doing it. And when I got to this point where at age 36, I had all this knowledge, so much knowledge, but no application. And all I did was apply. I just started to apply. I stopped asking questions. I stopped wondering, I can't touch my toes, but they can. Am I doing it right? And I just did it. Yeah. And I just did it and did it and did it and did it and did it. And then a year later, all of a sudden, I could almost do the splits. Yeah. Another year after that, I could do the splits. I could do back, all these things that I could never, ever do before. It just happened. And it just happened from the application.
Knowledge, and this is something that we should probably really, really talk about. Knowledge is both empowering and toxic. It's toxic in the way that you get addicted to absorbing knowledge. But the problem is that all of the great stuff happens from execution. It doesn't happen from the knowledge. You can achieve incredible feats of mastery by executing the smallest amount of knowledge. And you can achieve absolutely nothing by accumulating a wealth of knowledge. And this is very important for everybody to understand. If you don't grasp that one concept, you will stay where you are and remain in a cycle of mediocrity forever, quite frankly. You have to understand that you have to grasp the concept of execution over constant knowledge. Accumulation of knowledge.
I've met some of the people that have got the most to say on a topic they can't do anything. They're useless. Yeah. And I remember it with martial arts. I remember the guys that they will just all talk, and they could tell you everything about anything. But if you sparred with them, you just leveled them. Yeah. And then the guys that wouldn't say anything, and they were the unassuming, the wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah. And then you'd spar with them, and they were unbelievable. They were so good, and they just leveled you. And of course, there's exceptions to the rule, and anybody can. I mean, the first exception that comes into my head is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor talks more than anyone, but that guy is unbelievable. Yeah. But there's exceptions to anything. The time comes where if we bring it back to what we're talking about here, flexibility or strength training. The time comes when you just need to execute. Yeah. And yes, you might have an injury in your knee, but what about, that's one joint. Yeah. One joint. What about all the other joints in your body? Yeah, you might be limited. Maybe you can't do a bunch of stretches very well because you've got a knee injury. So what? You know how many joints you've got in your spine? Then you've got your shoulder, elbow, wrists, your fingers, your neck, you've got your ankles, your hips. Like, that's one joint, Work around it. Get started and see what happens from executing rather than procrastinating.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do, and there's always a way to work around really any injury. But you have to, you have to align yourself with the right people, and you certainly should always get a professional diagnosis of an injury. I don't suggest just trying to train through it, hoping that it's going to get better, because, especially with stretching as an example, you can make a tear worse. But then on the flip side, if it's an overuse like tendinopathy, doing nothing is actually worse. So you need to know, okay, I've got a tendinopathy, a degradation of the tissue, and I need to stimulate it to a degree where it will start to heal, and I get oxygenated blood flowing into that area. But you can't go too hard. A tendinopathy is usually always an abusive load to that area of the body, and it can come in one instance, or it can come in multiple instances where you've overused it. And the key to that is to absolutely keep training, but training smart, and not overdoing it, so that we're not overstimulating the area. So and you won't know that until you've had a professional diagnosis. So that's I think that's the initial rule, and then there's always ways to work around it. And if you do have issues, guys, we're more than happy to help out to the best of our professional ability, but there will be times when we refer you out to a specialist or a physical therapist. And we're very lucky, we've got a great network of people, so we can get people on the show as well. So if you do have questions, like we had a question recently about the long thoracic nerve, which is one of the inhibitors of the scapula. If it's damaged, it will create scapular winging. It's one of the main causes of that. Now, it was a question that was slightly above my pay grade, so we've lined up a specialist to come in and talk about it with us in the coming weeks. And that's something we can always do.
Yeah. Well, that's all we've got time for today. It was a great chat. I hope that some of you got something out of that, because there is a lot of wealth in what we just spoke about then. And I really hope that it makes some of you think about the way that you're doing things, and hopefully maybe take some more action. And be smart. Just don't rush the process. The process of changing your body is a long journey, and that shouldn't be viewed as a negative thing. It's not the kind of thing where you can jump up and say, I'm going to beat my body into great shape now. It's a decision that you make where you think, I am now going to undertake the journey that every day my body is going to be a little healthier, a little more flexible, and a little stronger than it was yesterday. And if you approach it like that, time goes by, there's nothing you can do about it. I love this saying from Bruce Lee. There's nothing you can do about it, but you can absolutely choose what you do with your time. And the choices that you make are going to determine whether or not you become the person you want to be or the person you don't want to be. So just make the right choices, start working on it, chipping away at it, and you'll reap the rewards.
Absolutely. Impatience is the death of mastery, and execution is the key to success. Get executing, guys. Have a great day. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.